Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. And today I thought we'd take a little bit of time and kind of discuss the issues within SA Rugby at the moment. Mainly the issues regarding the non-Rainbow Cup or non-Pro 14, Pro 16, previously non-Super Rugby sides. Because over the past 2 months, we've seen a lot of rugby in South Africa, a lot of rugby. We've seen two varsity tournaments. We've seen the preparation series, we've seen a Rainbow Cup, and then this weekend we saw an invitational side versus the Cheetahs. And what was quite interesting is we saw the invitational side actually beat the Cheetahs, which means that, as is the depth of talent across this country, that a team made up of fringe players from other unions and from Varsity Cup managed to beat what is currently South Africa's 5th best side. And that has nothing to do with, this has nothing to do with me saying that the Cheetahs were bad or didn't deserve it. I don't think the Cheetahs played as well as they could have, and I think on the better day, or a different day, the Cheetahs probably win that match. But the point is that we managed to throw together a side that was quite easily good enough to be sort of 5th or 6th best team in the country all of a sudden, just from fringe players from unions who currently can't get a look in. And it's also not a criticism towards these unions for saying that these players should be playing, because you will always have players who don't play. You will always have a 30, 35 man squad, of which 7, 12, 13, 14 players don't really get to play on a regular basis. But I think what we're seeing more and more is the fact that there's a lot of talent in the country, but only very limited opportunity to really sort of display that. You've only got 4 sides, where right now, as a potential schoolboy, you're going to be sitting there saying, that's my ticket into becoming a Springbok. That's my ticket into professional rugby. All of these schoolboys right now, all these varsity students are going to be sitting there thinking, I have to play for Bulls, Stormers, Sharks, or Lions if I want to take my career to the next level. And what we need to do is try and figure out a way to try and ensure that the next 4 teams are not necessarily as strong, but are very strong sides and can be as viable as a career path as the other 4 teams. We did a video about this about a couple of months ago, but I think we're still sitting with a similar situation. I think that, with us going north and everything like that, and the whole sort of shift and everything like that, we've seen now, after the preparation series, EP Elephants just not playing rugby at the moment. Griquas and Pumas are currently having to organize friendlies. The Cheetahs had to organize this invitational friendly to get them playing. And the problem is that they're all preparing for the Currie Cup. But come the Currie Cup, if it does go ahead in sort of July, August, which apparently is sort of the time frame we're looking at, how is a team like the Pumas, who have played a game against the Falcon, maybe a game against the club, suddenly going to now compete against the Bulls, even the Bulls without their Springbok stars? How are they going to be able to compete with a side which has got such big reserves in terms of player depth, in terms of junior setups? They've been playing week in, week out. These players are in form. They're up to match fitness. They're ready. They've got their patterns of play all sorted. And now you need to be able to try and contend against them. It's just not feasible. And if we want to try and make the Currie Cup more watchable, we want to try and make it something that we will look forward to, and something that's quite competitive. It can't just be a case of who will win out of the 4 teams. It's got to be a case of, will we see an outside team in the semi-final? And how do we do that? And I think the first thing that SA Rugby needs to do is identify a secondary competition after the Pro 16. These 4 sides are fine. They're going to play Pro 16, and they're going to crack on, hopefully going to be into European Challenge Cup and Champions Cup, and they're going to be absolutely fine, which is great. All for it. Big thumbs up. What happens to Cheetahs? What happens to Pumas? What happens to Griquas? What happens to EP? These are 4 sides that need to form the basis of our next competition, and we need to decide what happens to these sides. It's not also just the Cheetahs. Talks about the Cheetahs maybe going into a competition with Georgian sides and Russian sides, or maybe going to the USA. It's not just about the Cheetahs. We have to find ways that the Pumas, Griquas, and EP can also continue playing on a regular basis, and you can have a genuine career through these unions, because there are far too many players who got lost to the system. And Ini Radebe is one of the main reasons I actually wanted to make this video. When you look at the sort of Ini Radebe career path, blighted with a bit of injury, but also a lot of controversy with, trying to sign for the Lions after not really sort of happening for him at Sharks, wanted something new, tried to sign for the Lions. The Lions he then failed the medical, was out of contract, didn't have anywhere to go. He's now back at EP, who picked him up, but he's not going to play any rugby. And we saw this weekend how well he played. And you sat there saying, suddenly Stormers are saying, he wouldn't be a miss in that Stormers side at the moment. And he is not an exception. He is not like this one player who's out there that could be good enough to play for the unions. There are plenty of players. But because the systems, we kind of got a bit of a bottleneck. Because what I will say is that SA Rugby, especially with Varsity Cup and Varsity Shield, have created a very, very wide pipeline. we've got this very wide pipeline, and then we've got a blockage right at the end when it gets to these 4 sides. If you've watched Currie Cup, if you watched even the Varsity Shield, not Currie Cup, Varsity Cup and Varsity Shield, if you've watched these 2 competitions, the standard of rugby has been very impressive. You look at the side of like a Wusu and the CPUT in that final, there was good rugby being played. There were good players in there. You look at the Varsity Cup. I mean, I was looking today at the 2014 Varsity Cup finals teams, and there's Franco Master, John Rost, Arno Buerta, Ricky Schroeder, I think it's like Wilco Lowe, something like that was around there. There are so many players, just sort of littered across these squads that have come from Varsity Cup. So Varsity Cup is an amazing competition and really has been a huge part of building SA Rugby. But how do we get those players, all those players, into the systems? How can we use that massive player base of Varsity Cup and Varsity Shield to fuel, our clubs? How do we get those players playing for the Pumas? How do we get those players playing for the Griquas? Because the problem is, you've got a UJ, a Wits, Pretoria, 3 universities in Gauteng in the Varsity Cup, and you've got the Lions and you've got the Bulls. Whereas you don't have any universities from Mpumalanga playing in the Varsity Cup. You don't have any universities from the Northern Cape in the Varsity Cup. So I think the biggest thing that SA Rugby needs to do is we need to try and ensure that the pipeline remains nice and wide. Because at the moment we've got these fantastic players that we see for a couple of months of the year, but only some of them really go on to make it. And obviously some players will not be good enough to necessarily play in a professional rugby, but I think that there are certainly more players that could be making it. And this is a reason we're seeing players like, take a Lewin de Bruin. It was decent for the Cheetahs, but nothing necessarily sensational. He's managed to bag himself and move over. Somebody like David Mayhazen apparently being offered a lot of money to go to Scotland. It's not even necessarily the big Springbok stars who are being poached at the moment. All these different talent across the country are being poached and looked at by European clubs because they don't understand the talent. The European clubs can't understand the talent, and the problem is, if you're a fly half in this country, you are sitting there saying, "Am I better than Mornestein? Am I better than Kerwin Bosch? Am I better than Elkton Yankees? Will I get ahead of Cade Voliter?" And if the answer is no to any of those sort of 3, 4, if you're not within the top sort of 6, 7 fly halves in the country at 21, 22 years old, what are you doing as your career? What happens? Do you ride the bench and sit in the squad and hope for Currie Cup? Do you go to a Pumas and play, in the Currie Cup once a year and hope that a bigger union picks you up? It's a very, very difficult situation as a player because the competition's so limited. If, for example, and I saw an article now by in the SA Rugby magazine, I think it was Ellen Null who was writing about it, talking about trying to get a competition with the 4 Australian sides and then EP, Pumas, Griquas, and Cheetahs. Now, the concept of that would be fantastic. That would be. Imagine seeing Griquas playing against the Reds and the Rebels and stuff like that. It would be brilliant. Financially, I'm not quite sure how that happens, but we need to try and bring in a massive competition in South Africa that runs alongside the Pro 16. You probably have to kind of start aligning seasons, or at least sort of work around it so that the Currie Cup operates when the Pro 16 isn't playing, and when whatever the second competition isn't. But we need to try and find a competition where we can get these players playing against quality opposition and start making the Pumas and EP being a genuine career path, and let's start getting Springboks out of these sides. Let's remove the idea that you have to play for one of these sides. Look at Roscoe Speckman. Roscoe Speckman is on the Bok radar. He's now gone on a 2-week loan to the Stormers. For the conclusion of the Rainbow Cup. And the reason he's doing that is 100% because he is part of the Bok plans, but he's not playing rugby at the moment. So for him to be able to be part of the Bok plans, he has to go on loan to the Stormers to be able to get some game time, to be able to then be ready for the British and Irish Lions series. I think the fact that he secured this loan deal, for me, speaks a lot towards the fact that I reckon he probably will be in that 45-man squad. I think there's definitely a certain amount of Rassie Russ was saying, listen, we need him to get game time. The Stormers are going to pick him up. They'll play him for 2 weeks. He gets 2 more games on his belt, and he's more prepared for the British and Irish Lions series. But that needs to not be the case. We can't worry about all these players getting game time because they're not part of the top 4. So it's quite an interesting conversation. It's something that we could talk about for a long time. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash like on the video. It's such an interesting sort of thing, but I really do think that we've got to try and find places for these 4 teams, because it's killing SA Rugby at the moment. There isn't enough opportunity at professional level. There's just, look at the Premiership. We've got 12 teams, top 14 or 14 teams, and those are all professional rugby players playing at the highest level. And yet the Currie Cup is currently 8. mean, it's 8 at the push. It was 7 sort of in the last one. It'll be 8 with EP, but it's 8, and it really is chalk and cheese between the two. There will obviously always be a gap. We've got to try and reduce that. So let me know what your thoughts are. That's what I like doing these. I want to try and hear what everybody else has to think. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Smash like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll be back at the Rainbow Cup stuff coming up as well. So make sure you keep an eye out on that. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven, and I'll chat to you soon.